Hey guys, we're going to be going back to the final physical and final magical fight of Dark Visions number 15 for a budget run. Now this is going to be just the physical fight against Hill Gigas. We're going to be doing the magical fight in a different video. And if you just want to see the fight itself, you don't really want to see or hear me talk at the beginning about budget runs and stuff, I'll put a timestamp. You can skip straight to the fight itself or skip straight to the team's gear if you want to see that. But before we go in, I wanted to talk briefly about the definition of budget run and like what does it mean to people. Because I get a lot of comments saying, you know, I'll post a run and I'll label it like as a budget run. I'll get comments like, that's not a budget run. You used a unit I didn't have, or you used a piece of gear from 6 months ago. It's a limited event, you know. So there's kind of like, you know, a balancing act of making a run as budget as possible, while also still being able to beat the fight in a you know acceptable way. So like, I could make a budget run against the Hill Gigas that uses like 4-star units, you know, rainbows only, and kills the boss, but it's gonna get a terrible score. Like, we beat the boss, it was absolutely trash tier budget, but the score was bad. On the other hand, I can use something like, you know, a really powerful meta unit like Zidane or even the new Tifa, and just use them, use a bunch of 7-stars, and like that one meta unit carried the fight. I didn't use any STMRs, and they still damage capped. But is it still really a budget run if you're using like the best unit in the game for the fight, even if it's just that one unit and everything else is cheap? You see like kind of like the balancing here. So in this run I'm about to do, I decided to go with this team. Now, it is using some limited units like the Elric brothers, King Bradley. This run should perfect score. It's not using any STMRs unless they're like, you know, free event STMRs or something. And we're going to perfect score, so this should be approachable. It's not using any like, you know, recent meta units. Like I was going to put Lord of the Seas Nicole on the team, and I thought to myself, like, that's a really recent unit. That's not really budget anymore, even though it would improve the score. Like, if I'm using Zidane, Arden, Avalanche Tifa, all of those units can, like, really, really carry this fight, but that's not really budget. At the same time, I do want to put out a team that at least scores high, if not perfect scores entirely. This one should perfect score, I hope, or at least I think it will, using all cheap gear. But I mean, it's using Edward Elric and King Bradley, and I can already see some people are going to say, like, I'm using a limited Neovisions from an old event. It's not really budget, etc., etc. But the kind of balancing thing is, like, I want to perfect score it and keep it cheap, but these are in-game fights, technically speaking. Anyway, there's, like, my little preamble about, you know, is this run really budget or not? So let's go ahead and now explain what is going on in the fight itself. So this is a human fight, weak to water or earth. And as I mentioned in the intro, if you have, like, you know, Zidane, Avalanche Tifa, Arden, all of these units are incredibly powerful, or even Lord of Seas Nicole would be a huge boost here. And they will make it very easy to damage cap this boss. But if you don't have any of them, here's a more budget run to do it. So we're going to use Bradley to cover the party with evasion. So we don't need any fire resist for the physical damage. All the physical damage is fire, except for the single target stuff, which you always need an evasion provoker for those. The magical damage is ice. We're going to use an 80% ice resist buff from Carbuncle on Descendant Cetra Aerith. And then in the later part of the fight, we're going to use the 100% ice resist buff from Elena, so we don't need any ice resist on the later forms. So there's the resistances. Okay, so we're only using the shift form of Aerith, and did I start her on the shift form and save me a click? I did. We're going to start her on the shift form. We're only going to use the shift form. She's got 20 or better ice resist in this form, and then other than that, just some LB fill and dual cast. And like I said, she's on Carbuncle for ice resist learn. And this is optional, but we're going to use Reflect and her Protect spell to make the boss bulkier so we can set up. It might not be required. We're going to do it just for the safety factor. And that's all she's going to do. Alphonse and Edward Elric are going to be ice resist in the base form. That's really all that matters. Shift form, they're going to be a LB capper. And they're going to do a lot of damage. They're going to do approximately 3.5 billion based on my calculations. Now, we are using all very cheap gear, no STMRs, just TMRs and below. We've got LB damage and human killer. We've got maxed human and 280 LB damage. We're using a spear to synergize with Edgar's spear in peril. And, we're using a human killer mace. There's no imperil for this. And again, like if you've got better gear, go for it. Like using ultimate blades for the sword in peril, huge damage bonus. But I'm trying to keep it budget by using cheaper gear. They're going to be the source of water amplify. Technically, they water imbue as well, but we don't need them for the imbue because we're going to be stealing the imbue from Elena anyway. So if you don't have Edward and Elric, the big thing they're providing is a water amplify for the party. Also, some decent finisher damage. King Bradley, base form, a little bit of ice resist, full evasion. He's going to be physical covering all of the physical attacks for the entire fight. And here is his setup. He's got some LB fill so he can have his LB ready to go by the kill turn. And on the kill turn, we're going to shift and his LB. So because we're only shifting on the kill turn, we're just using, we don't need any resistances. And, level his LB a little bit. Mine's not fully leveled. It should be good enough. It doesn't really matter that much. He's going to be doing approximately 2.5 billion damage. Double sword for the Imperil from Elena. And, LB damage, human killer. He does have a lot of high human killer innately, so he's really easy to gear for it. Maxed human, 290 LB damage. Zahn, just, ice resist, and his TMR, he's going to be just, spreading buffs and support chaining. Elena is going, and because Bradley is covering all the physical, we don't actually need a provoker, so Zahn's not provoking. Elena is going to be for the water imperil, the human killer buff, the sword imperil. She's going to cure our imperils on turn 4, give us a 100% resist buff on turn 4. So she's overall pretty useful. Her damage is going to be approximately 1 billion, probably a little bit less, honestly, because she's a hybrid. But she's a good support unit. So here's the gear we're using, all cheap gear. She's got 20 or better ice resist. We're covering the physical, so we don't need to worry about fire. There is her build. She's got this is not Savior. This is the free chain cap boost we got. If you have Saviors, absolutely give it to her. It'll be better. And there we go. She's got maxed out human killer. And then shift form is completely naked. We're only going to shift on the shift form one turn. And then King Edgar in the base form is using just a little bit of ice resist, all that really matters. Shift form, we're not going to shift until we get that 100% buff from Elena, so we don't need to worry about resist here. She's using a sword and a spear for his own imperil. Jump damage, human killer. He's going to be doing most of the damage. He's going to be doing about 4.5 billion approximately. 275 human, 725 jump damage, and again, all cheapy gear. Okay, so let's get in here and give it a go. And I'm going to pause for a second in case I make a mistake. Got to, change something. But otherwise, let's go. All right. Let's do this. So we're going for a turn 7 clear. Now, I could do a quicker clear, but I figured it's less stressful to do a slower clear and not really have as tight of actions. So on turn 1, Aerith is just going to ice resist. That's all we really need. This is from Carbuncle. We're just going to physical cover from Bradley. The rest of the party doesn't really matter. Elrics are going to use their Magnus on this turn to unlock it permanently. Edgar will use Dignified King just to fill his LB gauge for later. Elena and Zahn can just... we'll go ahead and wait on these two for now, because I actually don't want to push any thresholds, and we're going to reflect some buffs to make the boss take really no damage at all. Alright, there's the ice damage. Okay, now this is completely optional here. You don't need to do this, but this makes it just, I like being safe. So I'm going to go ahead and reflect a protect buff onto the boss, and it's going to, because I'm doing it on turn 2, it'll fade by the time we're ready to kill. So now we're going to use Elena to triple. We're going to do AR and double SR, and Zahn's going to match her, so we're going to do AR and double SR. And this is going to get that chain count score out of the way, because on the kill turn, we're not going to be chaining to 100. So this gives us that credit for a 100-point chain score right now. We were a point short. We were a point short. We're going to do that again next turn. My bad. I forgot, normally when I do that while I'm using a finisher to actually kill the boss. And that's actually a little bit short on on the count. It's okay, we'll do it again this turn. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and reload that again. This time we're gonna use, I guess we'll use Edgar to just punch to increase that chain score. So we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll just punch Edgar, and that'll boost the chain a little bit. There we go, 100-point chain score complete. Okay, so turn 3, nothing else really going on here. We can just, you know, hang out. Okay. Let's see here. So this turn, we got imperiled. We're going to go ahead and shift Elena, and we're going to use Crystal Refragmentation. This is going to cure the imperils and break the, or get rid of the, it's going to cure our imperils to give us a 100% resist buff. We'll just use Zahn here to Black Mirror to get rid of those buffs from the boss. Let me write this on my chart. That gets rid of the boss's buffs we put up earlier. It's turn 4. We're going to shift Edgar now that we have 100% resist buff. And we're going to use his LB to start stacking him up. King Bradley is going to just refresh cover on this turn. The Elrics can just guard this turn. Aerith can just guard this turn. I don't really need anything. Okay. All right, I'm noticing I'm actually a little bit low on Aerith's LB. I should have given her more LB fill, I guess. We're gonna go ahead and just try to fill LB on Aerith. Does he have AR for multi-hit? I don't think he does. Okay, well, whatever. We'll just do. Let's go ahead and try to get Aerith's LB here. We really got to get it right here. So hopefully I get it. I didn't. It's fine. We can actually spread buffs while Edgar's in the air. So Edgar's going to jump, but not yet. We're going to use Edward and Elric to shift. We're going to do Get Up You Novice, and we're going to do Water Amplify. Elena's going to go back to the base form. She's going to do, let's see, Speed of Light. We're going to do, in this order, Piercing. We're going to do a Crystal Refragmentation, and we're going to do Aquatic Enervation. So we'll do all that. All right, we still didn't get Aerith. We'll get it next turn. All right, let's go ahead and Reflector. Let's do Reflector on Zahn. Let's do Critical on Elena. Let's do Elemental on Elena. And then, doesn't really matter. Aerith, you're not ready yet, unfortunately. So Edgar will just jump. Alright, so we definitely should have spent more time filling Aerith's LB gauge earlier in the fight. Or I should have extended the fight longer because, or I should have leveled her LB gauge. Hers is not leveled on my Aerith. Alright, so now we're going to do her LB gauge for those big 400% stat buffs. And that gives Zahn the stat buff, which allows him to now Projected Mirror. Alright, so that gives everyone the buff. Let's see. We will. This fight you lose for Elric. Gets him ready for next turn. Elena, you're good. Bradley, we're now going to do a break on the boss. I forget his name. It's All Meaningless. Is Bradley's 85% breaks. Okay, so now we're ready to kill the boss. Okay, so Edgar's ready to drop. So Elena is going to triple. We're going to do Blade of Salvation twice and then a Piercing Prism. Zahn is going to triple Bolting Strike to match with Elena. They're going to be our chainers for the clear. Elric is going to shifted LB. Bradley is going to shift and do his shifted LB. And we're going to use Aerith to this quad cast tag chain to build the chain up a little bit before we send everyone else. Alright, so the boss has Spear Imperil, Sword Imperil, Imperil to Water, and is, what's it called? Is full stat broken. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and send Aerith, wait for the chain to build a little bit, then send everyone else pretty much, and then we can drop our Dragoon as well in there. And we should get about an 86 point chain. Yep, 86 points. And hopefully we did 10 billion. That's the plan at least. We should have done a little bit more. 11 billion, perfect. So a few mistakes in that clear. I didn't fill Aerith's LB gauge. I should have given like Rallying Cry or Eccentric for units, or I should have hit the boss more often on off turns. But here is the damage breakdown. So King Edgar did a little bit less than I expected. Edward and Alfonsi did actually a lot more than I expected. That's surprising. I didn't think they'd do that much. Weird. Bradley did less than I expected. Yeah, this damage is all over the place. And then Elena did exactly as I thought she would. Yeah, so there was the budget run using a perfect score with no STMRs and older units. The only Neovision's base that was not free is Edward and Alphonse Elric. And, they were a little bit important. As you saw, they did about half the damage of the party. So that's kind of like, the hang-up is, like, do I not use them and just not put out a perfect score video? Because if I'm using, like, something really, really old, like, the original Tifa, we just wouldn't have damage capped. The damage cap wouldn't have happened. So, what would you rather see? Like, a not perfect score, or what I feel is close to the minimum of budget while still getting the job done, which means I have to use some Neovision bases. Anyway, that was that clear, so I will spend some time planning the dragon clear, and we'll go and see what's the cheapest way we can clear the dragon a little bit later. See you then.